back now, or we're gonna end up losing them.
Out of left field, 180-degree left field, like he started making sexual connotations about the individual.
The courtroom is an arena with a lot of drama and suspense, where the verdict of the judge and jury determines the fate of the accused. Today, we'll be looking at some defendants who got the death penalty, but not from the judge. How is this possible? These shocking stories and how they end will leave you baffled. Stick around as we take a look at 5 convicts who died in the courtroom. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel for jaw-dropping videos just like this. Number 5. Jatendra Goji. Jatendra is one person we can confidently say got a taste of his own medicine. Jatendra was an Indian gangster facing 19 counts of murder and extortion. He was the leader of the heavily feared Goji gang. The gang was famous for starting fights on school property, carjacking, and engaging in various gang wars. He was linked to many murders, including one that was witnessed by a famous folk singer by the name of Harshita Dahiya. Among the list of victims were political party leaders, rival gang members, and a school teacher, as well as bystanders who happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. Although Jatendra had been apprehended multiple times by the authorities, he had always found a way to escape the custody of the police, and soon found himself at the top of the list of Delhi's most dangerous gangsters. But his luck soon ran out, and he was caught once again after an $8,000 reward was put on his head. And this time, they were sure that he would not be getting out. The police had gathered enough evidence, and on September 24, 2021, Jatendra was brought into the Rohini District Court in New Delhi for a hearing of one of his criminal cases. While the court session was still going on, 2 men who seemed to have disguised themselves as lawyers walked into the courtroom. Immediately they entered, they whipped out guns and opened fire. No one really knew who those men were. There was a possibility that they had been hired by a rival gang to end Jatendra's reign of terror once and for all. The police rushed into the courtroom and began exchanging fire with the gunmen, and the 3 gangsters had lost their lives. Number 4. Laurent Anthony Ball. Laurent was facing a felony charge and 2 counts of armed robbery. He was tracked and hunted down by the police after he killed 27-year-old Eamon Rogers and made away with his Rolex on the night of December 27, 2001. Laurent was held under custody at the Milwaukee County Jail. While he waited for his trial, he began plotting his escape. He had initially planned to exchange identification wristbands with a prisoner who was about to be released, but he bled too much, and an informant gave him up to the deputies. He was soon moved into solitary confinement, and his first attempt was a bust. He began plotting again, but he was being closely monitored by the police. When his trial began, Laurent was being brought into the courtroom wearing stun belts, handcuffs, and shackles, but on the day the verdict came back on May 29, 2002, Laurent was brought into the courtroom without handcuffs, stun belts, or shackles. After the jury had read out the verdict, Laurent was found guilty. Immediately after the verdict was read, chaos was unleashed as Laurent ran across the courtroom, throwing himself into the jury box and trying to jump out the window. The window remained intact, leaving Laurent sealed in with the members of the jury. He was tackled by 2 deputies, but during the struggle, he got a hold of one of their guns and shot twice, hitting one of the deputies in the leg. While the other deputy tried to keep a hold of Laurent, Alfonso Morales, who was the lead detective, in an attempt to prevent the situation from getting further out of hand, brought out his pistol and fired several shots at Laurent. Number 3. David Paradiso. David was charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping. In 2006, David's mom had been driving David and his girlfriend Eileen Pelt. The pair had been dating for about 2 weeks. During the drive, there had been no arguments or shouts until screams were suddenly heard from the car, and David's mom witnessed David stabbing his 2-week-old girlfriend. David was later arrested. The trial had taken place in Judge Cinder Fox's courtroom. The defense had initially argued that David was high on drugs when he stabbed his girlfriend, and David took the stand claiming that he murdered Eileen only because he thought she was after his life. But by the second day, his story had changed, saying he murdered Eileen because she deserved to die, and he went on to lay out unpleasant details of the events in the courtroom. His statement had soon gotten Eileen's family upset, and they began acting out, with David's mother yelling that David should not have been allowed to take the stand. With the entire courtroom in so much chaos, the judge decided to call for a recess. David immediately stood up, and the deputies yelled at him to sit back down, but he refused, and instead backed up behind the witness chair, pulling out an object from his pocket and attacking the judges with it. In an attempt to salvage the situation, Detective Bradley fired 3 times at David, and he didn't survive. Number 2. Michael Maron. Michael Maron was charged with arson of an occupied structure on June 28, 2012. Maron's son had apparently received an email with some instructions on how to handle some things and where to find his car in case things go south in court. There seemed to be nothing out of the ordinary, but this email had been sent hours after Michael had been pronounced dead. Even more shocking was what was discovered in the car. Prior to his conviction, Michael was a lawyer from Yale who ran into a lot of money trading on Wall Street, lived a very lavish lifestyle, and was famous for his luxurious tastes in expensive art. He collected expensive Picasso sketches, drove a Rolls-Royce, and flew in his very expensive plane. He also had a 6,600 square foot, $2.55 million mansion. In July 2009, Michael's mansion went up in flames. But the most surprising thing that happened that day was the story Michael told the news crew about how he had managed to escape by climbing out the window wearing a scuba tank. The entire ordeal seemed a bit sketchy, even to officials and arson investigators. To sum it all up, all of his most prized possessions, such as his Picasso sketches, were all out of the house and in a safe. The question on everyone's mind was, why would this millionaire burn down his own house? It turned out Michael had started going broke, having only $47,000 in his account and failing on his mortgage, which had resulted in him burning down his house in an attempt to get some insurance money. Michael was arrested and charged on June 28, 2012, found guilty, and faces a possible jail term of 7 to 21 years. This was an outcome Michael literally couldn't live with. After he heard the verdict, Michael buried his face in his hands and then took a drink out of a bottle in his pocket. Soon after, his face turned red. Moments later, he began convulsing and collapsed. Despite attempts by paramedics to resuscitate him, Michael eventually gave up the ghost. A cyanide pill was later found, which he had brought with him while coming to the trial. Number 1. Jason Binkowitz. Jason was charged with 2 counts of felony assault and 1 count of attempted murder. During Thanksgiving 2015, while his family and friend were having Thanksgiving dinner, Jason got himself drunk and made his way into a new townhome in Ohio, where he shot the homeowner who, fortunately, survived. He was initially offered a 5-year plea deal, which he turned down. He went on to plead not guilty by reason of insanity and claimed to have been at the house to buy drugs and had shot the victim by reason of self-defense. The verdict was eventually given, and he was found guilty by the judge and sentenced to 13 years. But Jason didn't have any plans to spend any time in prison. Jason's ankles had not been in shackles when he was initially brought into the courtroom because they had been swollen. While he was being escorted out of the courtroom, Jason decided to make a run for it, and even though one of the deputies had chased after him, he could only get a little grip of his prison shirt before Jason made his way over the banister of the 3rd floor building, leaving the entire courtroom in disarray. An emergency responder rushed to the scene, but it was too late because the fall was not something anyone could easily survive. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. What do you think about these cases? And are there any videos you'd like to see in the future? Let us know in the comments. And please, don't forget to like and subscribe to Yarrow for more entertaining videos.